17th century France. The age of King Louis XIV, the Sun King, an age of absolute power, decadent art, and absolute secrets. In the dungeons of the state, from Pignerol to the infamous Bastille, a single prisoner lived for over 30 years. He is a historical fact, but he has no name, he has no face, he is known to history only by the object that erased him, the man in the iron mask. He wasn't a myth, he was a state secret. But who was he, and what secret was so dangerous that his face had to be erased from the world? Today, we unseal the file on the king's secret prisoner. This is Dark Files Unsealed. The file begins not with his arrival, but with his death. November 19th, 1703. A prisoner dies in the Bastille. The very next day, he is buried under the false name Marchioli. The prison governor orders his cell to be completely stripped. The walls are scraped and whitewashed. The furniture is burned. The man's clothing and belongings are destroyed. Every trace of his physical existence is obliterated. The jailer, Bénigne de Saint-Mars, had been this man's personal warden for 34 years. He had moved the prisoner with him from prison to prison across France. The rules were simple and absolute. The prisoner was to be treated well. He had fine food, books, a physician, but on two conditions. He must never speak to anyone but his jailer, and he must never be seen unmasked. The penalty for any guard who saw his face was death. The legend, popularized by the philosopher Voltaire, says the mask was iron. Historical records suggest it was more practical and perhaps more sinister. Black velvet. An iron mask is torture. A velvet mask is a tool of erasure. It doesn't punish the flesh, it suffocates the identity. The question isn't just, who was he? The real question is, why not just kill him? For centuries, the mystery of his identity has fueled explosive theories. The secret was kept so well, it must have been someone who could topple the throne. Theory 1, the twin brother. This is the most famous theory, thanks to Voltaire and Alexandre Dumas. The story goes, King Louis XIV had an identical twin. To prevent a bloody civil war over succession, a war of two kings, the second-born twin was hidden away and later imprisoned, his face masked to hide the royal resemblance. It's the most romantic theory. It makes for a fantastic movie, but there is zero historical evidence. The birth of a royal child is an incredibly public event, precisely to prevent these kinds of conspiracies. There is no record of a twin. Theory 2. The disgraced noble. The list of suspects includes a disgraced finance minister, Nicolas Fouquet, or a failed general, the Duke of Beaufort. But the timelines don't add up. Fouquet's death in prison is well documented. The Duke of Beaufort was killed in battle. These men were enemies of the state, but their fates were known. The man in the mask was a non-person. Theory 3. The secret bloodline. Perhaps a son or an older, illegitimate brother. Someone whose very existence proved a royal indiscretion and threatened the king's legitimacy. The king's own mother, Anne of Austria, was rumoured to have had lovers. What if the prisoner was her son, but not the king's? A secret that would make Louis XIV a usurper. The theories are cinematic, but the truth, hidden in the archives, is more mundane, and in some ways, more terrifying. The dark file was cracked when historians decoded the letters between the king's minister and the jailer, Saint-Mars. They reveal a name registered at the first prison in 1669, Eustache d'Auger. This name, Eustache d'Auger, was not a prince, not a general. The letters refer to him as merely a valet. This is the great paradox. Why this bizarre, high-security, 30-year imprisonment for a simple servant? The answer must be he was a valet who knew too much. This is the valet theory, and it's the most accepted. D'Auger was likely the valet for a nobleman involved in a terrible scandal or conspiracy against the king. Perhaps the affair of the poisons, or a plot with a foreign power. The valet is a ghost. He hears everything, he sees everything. D'Auger wasn't imprisoned for who he was. He was imprisoned for what he knew. They couldn't just kill him. It might draw attention or anger his former master. But they couldn't let him live. So, they chose a third option. They erased him. File 27, the man in the iron mask, is closed with a chilling verdict. The identity of the man may have been Eustache d'Auger, a simple valet. But the mystery was never about his name. It was about the king's power. The king had the power of life and death. But he also had a more terrible power, the power of erasure. The power to take a man's face, his name, and his connection to the world, and lock him in a living tomb for 34 years. The mask was a psychological weapon. It turned a man into a ghost, and in doing so, it created a legend far more powerful than the man himself. His name was erased, but his mask became eternal. The file is closed, but the face remains unknown. Thanks for watching. If you want to uncover more of history's darkest secrets, make sure you subscribe to Dark Files Unsealed.